Why hello there partner, welcome to Gamers Web. My name's Mark and in this here video I'm going to take a look at the Rules and Gubbins set from this here Wild West Exodus from Warcradle Studios. Let's get it on. Hi folks, welcome back. Okay, as I said in the intro, in this video I'm going to take a look at the Rules and Gubbins set for Wild West Exodus. This is the 3rd edition rules, which have just been re-released. There's two different versions of the rules. There's the Rules and Gubbins set, which gives you the dice and counters and the rules and stuff and templates that you need to play. And then there's the 2-player starter set, which is the Showdown at Retribution, which gives you the exact same contents you get in the box, plus 2 different factions of miniatures, 2 posses. Okay, so this was very kindly sent to me from the guys at Warcradle, so thank you very much to Free and Stuart and everybody at Warcradle for this. So let's get it on. Alright, so what we get, as I just briefly mentioned, we get everything you need to play the game, with the exception of miniatures. So we get our rulebook, we get our action deck, and we also get an adventure deck. We get a set of dice, 4d10. We get some tokens for conditions and counters, and we get a template set. And of course, as I mentioned, we get our rules updated to the 3rd edition for Wild West Exodus. Right, so without further ado, let's just crack this open and we'll see what we get. And as you can see on the top here, it says for use with all factions. So we can use this with all of the factions in Wild West Exodus. So in the Showdown at Retribution, you get 2 factions. You get the Enlightened and the Union, which is 2 of the factions that I actually play. I've got both the factions, mainly Union. Just put that down safely so I don't stab myself with it. Okay, so as with previous editions of Wild West Exodus, the game comes with a slip sleeve, and we get our faction logos for our various things like Watchers and Lawmen, Union, Warrior Nation, Enlightened, all that kind of stuff, which I'll go through once we get to the actual core itself. And then this comes off, and then we have our really cool looking wood finish cardboard box. I really like these boxes. I've mentioned it in previous videos, they always add a bit of class to the proceedings, I feel. And it's got the Wild West Exodus logo on it. In fact, if I turn it the right way around, like that. Actually, no, it was the right way around, wasn't it? Alright, okay, so, sorry, just excited. Okay, so what do we get inside? We get our action deck. Now, I did say there's 2 card decks, but it seems like there's only 1. That's because there's 2 card decks. There's 1 deck in here that's very small, and there's a large deck. So we've got both of them. We get our 10-sided dice. There's 4 of those. We'll look at the cards in a moment, and I'll show you what the cards look like compared to the previous edition. Okay, so these D10 with the Wild West Exodus symbol on the 1, and then on the 10, on the 10 and on the 1 we've got the my brain's gone. The Ace of Spades symbol. We have our template, which if you're used to any of the dystopian age gaming, you'll be familiar with this. The template is used for range movement, measurements, all sorts of different things, weapons, turning, using vehicles, using in dystopian wars, as well as Wild West Exodus and Mythos. Okay, and then we have our rule book, which we'll look through in a moment, which is like very nice, done very much like an old book. And then finally, if I can just get in without breaking it, we have our condition tokens. Okay, so let's start off with this whilst I've got the condition tokens here. Right, so I need to sit down and get comfortable because then I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so we have these tokens. We've got hazard tokens, as well as stunned, on lookout, disordered, and hunkered. That all come into play when you're playing the game, and they can be used, as it says on the thing, with Dystopian Wars, Lost World Exodus, Wild West Exodus, and other dystopian age games. And if you look on the back, they're identical, they're exactly the same. So we'll just put that down there for a moment. And then we have our rule cards, and the cards are in a nice Western style deck of cards. Just take the sellotape off the top, and I can get in without breaking the packet. And as I said, we get two very tightly packed decks of cards in here, right? So we've got two lots of action points, and then we have our cards. Now the cards come with these cards come with two sides on them, and you can play either guts or glory, depending on what you want to do. And they also give you the details of what is. So like, reveal this card when and discard this game +1 triggered activation, or on the glory, which is like pushing yourself and going all out. Achieve the following: destroy a hand or troop unit in a shoot action this turn, and you score +1 victory point when you do so. Okay, so just gonna have a quick look through some of the cards. Now, as far as I'm aware, these cards should be the same as the cards from the previous edition, which I will endeavour to have a look at in one moment. Okay. Right, so we've got quite a lot of cards here. So there's guts, unit gains 1 quick, action points, unit gains 1 mind, triggered activation, which is the same as the first one, and +1 activation point. They seem to repeat themselves, +2 action points, very similar to the others. And these are version 1.10 or 1.10, which I'm sure is one above the last lot. So here's my previous edition of cards, and when we go to these, I'm just going to quickly have a look. So the backing on the cards is identical. That's the new edition, that's the old edition. And then we look on the back, and I'm just going to have a look. This doesn't have they're more or less the same, but it doesn't have the version number on it, on the card. So for those people who I think they're more or less the same. I'm not exactly sure, but I do think they're more or less the same. So those cards seem to be just usual ones that we got in the older edition. I'm gonna, if I see if I've still got them knocking about, so I should still have the other action cards as well. Or they may be in. No, they're in with my Wild West Exodus miniatures, so I'll just leave those for the moment. But as far as I'm aware, the action deck, the action point deck, are identical. And again, they say the 1.10 on the actual pack. Okay, so quickly have a look at these, and you can see how they work. Now, your action points are drawn randomly. It tells you how many actions you have for that turn, and obviously the maximum limit you can spend is limited to your character's limit. So I've got one, lots of ones, some twos, threes, eventually, threes, and in this one here we have 3s and 4 and a 5. The last one should be a 5, and I think there's only 1 5 in the deck. Okay, so these are quite important when you're actually playing the game, because they allow you to do extra things in the game. And you can also increase your difficulty when you actually play. Okay, so just pop those back quickly out of the way. Let's pop those in there for the moment. Okay, so we've seen the dice, we've seen the cards, the turn template and range ruler. You take all this off, so you've got a teardrop template that we use for things like flamers, for area effects. We've got this range ruler here, which can be used for movement and other things, and then we've got this here which can be used for turning. The more useful with games like Dystopian Wars, because a lot of these things you don't tend to use as much in Wild West Exodus, because the ranges on the weapons are all in inches, and some of the ranges like up to 18-24 inches, so this isn't going to fit it, you know, work that. But your teardrop template would be the most that you'd probably use, and maybe using this one for moving your characters as well, because this goes up to 9 inches. Okay, so let's look at the template. We've already looked at the tokens, so let's reposition the camera and then we can have a good look through the rulebook. Okay, so first significant change you see with the rulebook is from the previous edition. The colours slightly changed. This is like a dragon skin, grey, dark leather cover finish with these fake clasps on the sides of it. The clasps are gone and it's now like a browny leather. And we've also got the version 3.1 on the front and Dystopian Age on the bottom. I'm just going to do a quick slight change as well on the font on the thing. I'm just going to do a quick count on the actual page count. So the previous edition, second edition, was 119 pages long, and this one is 134. So slightly more bang for our buck. But as with the previous edition of Wild West Exodus, this book is the majority of it is background information rather than just the rules. The rules are only about 35 pages. So let's jump in. Okay, so for those new to Wild West Exodus, it's a what if alternate historical game, or weird West role miniature game. So basically we have our timeline is more or less the same up until about 1700. Then things start to change when a alien spacecraft and a meteorite crash on Earth, and we then start getting technological advances as people find these strange elements that they can use to advance things. So welcome to the Warcradle Studios Wild West Exodus, often referred to simply as WWX. An exciting and fast-paced tabletop game, Wild West Exodus will immerse you in the darkness of the Weird West, a world far more sinister than the one in our history books. For thousands of years, the progress of humanity has been influenced by clandestine forces who seek to reshape the world for their own purpose. Whether this interference has taken the form of corruption or influence, it has plunged the world into a terrifying new age of arcane science and heroic gunfighting set against the backdrop of conflict that has raged for millennia. Okay, so basically it's a diesel punk, steampunk type game set in an alternate 1880s. Okay, so we have our contents, my brain's gone, our credits here, and thanks to all the people on the credits. And then we have our contents. So as I said, the game itself, we have a game overview which tells us how we play the game, and then from there onwards it's roughly, I think, up to page 41 is the rules. So we've got 40 pages of rules, and then after that, from page 42 onwards, it's all background information. Okay, so we have the game overview. So the world has changed. The American Civil War still ended the same way as it did in our reality, but it was slightly different because we were using advanced technology such as Nikola Tesla was supplying weapons to the Union, and Gustav Eiffel, who built the Eiffel Tower, was supplying weapons to both the Union and the Confederacy, and these weapons were like, you know, made with alien technology that was super advanced. And we ended up with like steam walkers and things like that. The world's advanced a lot. We've got cybernetics, we've got constructed creatures, we've got aliens, we've got all sorts of crazy stuff going on. Okay, so this is just glossary terms of the stuff we have. Quite a few here, and it's well worthwhile reading through this because this part's quite interesting and you will need a lot of it. We have examples of play all the way through the book. A Nikola Tesla in his superpower armor, and then some great new artwork. And then here we have the anatomy of a card. Now, I've got a card to hand because I've got one from my previous edition, and I can just pull one out without dropping everything on the floor. And then we can go through it. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up the first one that I can come across, which is Black Hoof 2020, who's one of the characters from one of the posses. And I'm just getting that out. And then we go through our card. So, as the rules tell you exactly how everything works on the card. But we have our quickness, which is how much distance they can cover for one activation point. We have our mind, which is their ability to use their strength of will and willpower. We have our aim, which is how good they are at shooting. This guy's pretty good because he's got an aim of 6. We have our grit, which is your constitution and your resistance against magic attacks and fear and stuff like that. We have our fight, which is how good they are in hand-to-hand and melee combat, and then we have our limit, which is the number of actions that this thing can take when it's activated. So he's got a limit of 3, which means he can do 3 actions. 3 actions as well come into play, which I'll go on to in a moment. Okay, so that's just a quick look at one of the cards. We've got attribute checks. So all the checks in the game are done on a D10, and we basically need to get 10 or higher to pass. So if you get a 10, it's a critical, it's a pass on the die without modifications. If you get a 1, it's a critical failure. So critical success, we're making a check, roll of 10 before any modifiers is considered a success regardless of any penalties. No unit, common or special rule, ability or effect can force a critical success to be re-rolled. If you get a 1, that's a failure, and again it can do some catastrophic things for you. Then we have our units. We have boss units, which are the people who lead your troops. Like in the 2-player starter set, you've got Gustav Eiffel and Nikola Tesla. And then we have commander units, the people who are subordinate to the bosses, who act like lieutenants. Then we also have face units. These are named characters who you take within your faction to help the boss and the faces. Face units normally have their own special rules. We have specialist units who are often experienced. Then we have hands or troops or support units. Transport units, tinted units. Tinted units tend to be constructed units by magic or dark forces from one of the factions like the Hex, which I'll come to in a moment. And then we have special rules. So unlike a lot of other games, Wild West Exodus, you get shot. If you fail your save, you're dead. there's no wounds. Nobody has any wound value at all. As you can see on the card, there's no wound value. But a lot of the characters have things like common rules, and if you've got a common rule on this that says the quick and the dead, the quick and the dead is basically an action that allows you to move out of line of sight or take a shot. And then you have metal as well, which is when this unit receives one or more runes from a combat action and it is not destroyed, but instead, once all grit checks have been made from the action, the unit receives a disorder condition. So it gives you a second chance at keeping your characters alive, and some of the characters have got a really high grit, which keeps them in the game a bit longer. We have fortune, which can be represented in the game by dice, or you can use poker chips like these with the Wild West Exodus symbol, which are available from Warcradle. You spend your fortune. You can spend 1 point of fortune during the activation phase to become focused, and focus attacks allow you to do special actions. Sorry, you cannot focus a special action, but they allow you to do become focused. So lots of different reactions. You got fortune, hit the dirt, lucky son of the gun, push it, taking one for the team reaction, veterans instinct reaction, walking off reactions. And then we've got the phases of the game. We've got an initiative phase, so you determine the initiative by using the cards. You draw your adventure cards and you check for reserves coming on. Then we've got the activation phase. We draw from the action deck, play with the initiative, activates a unit, opposing player activates a unit, and replay it until everybody's gone. So I go, you go, I go, you go. And then resolution phase at the end. You move any unengaged models, discard unwanted action cards, and check for victory conditions. It is possible to win the game in the first turn if you are really, really lucky. Most likely it's probably going to last 4 or 5 turns before anything happens. So we determine our initiative, draw our adventures. We have a point limit of how many cards you get. So if you're playing a 99 point game, which is like probably a face and a unit of hands or something like that, you get 3 cards. If you're playing up to over 200 points, you get 200 points upward, 199 points, you get 5, and then for 50 points extra over that, you get +1 in your card limit of your action deck cards, adventure cards. Sorry. We have a reserve checks, unit morale, and then how you activate. So you draw from the activation deck, play with the initiative, activates a unit, right? So if you have spent your fortune, you recover your fortune back again during the activation, and it tells you on your card how much fortune you have. Also, the cards tell you the number in that unit, which is at the top, and the size of base that it's on, which is medium. In this, it's a 1, and the unit's size is 1, and its base size is medium. So we go through our activation. The opposing player activates a unit, and then it goes back to the first player again, and it goes on until everybody's finished. Then we have the resolution phase. So move on engaged models, starting with a player who has the initiative. Both players take it in turns to select one or more of the units that has one or more enemy models, more models engaged by the enemy. Unengaged models in that unit must be moved up to their quick value in inches towards a model in the enemy unit that has engaged them. So it's basically like charging. And you discard unwanted cards, check for victory conditions. And on the actual cards themselves, we have symbols such as interrupt, which you can play when your player, your players, not your players go, your opponents go. Restore, which might restore fortune points to your unit, and then triggered activation. This allows you to discard this and get a bonus, such as like a +1 or let's see, or activate an extra unit. Triggered activations: if this symbol is on the card, after making this activation, you may declare you may make a triggered activation. You must reveal and discard the adventure card with this symbol. This will enables you to do so. You may then immediately activate another unit within 10 inches of the unit you just activated. So, sounds good, but can be really bad because you can end up getting rid of all your cards really quickly and activating all your units, and then you can't go in your opponent's turn. So, how we use our action points. So, free actions. Free actions is an action that doesn't cost any points. So, turning a facing is a free action. So here we have our movement actions. These cost points. So you've got run, sprint, get in, get out, climb, jump, falling. And then combat actions, rate of attack is the how many attacks you can get with that weapon. Strike and hunkered, which means you're going down into cover. Now when you get shot at, you can be classed as hunkered, which makes it harder for you to be hit because you're kissing the ground. Weapon modifiers, shoot, slice. So these are all different attributes towards the combat actions and stuff. So shoot, size, target engaged, and higher ground. Higher ground is pretty good for characters because you've got the high ground. It's harder for a character on the floor to hit you, and you get an advantage for being above them. Grits and being wounded. So you've got your grit check, so it's a D10 plus your grit minus any plus or minus any modifiers. So if you're hunkered, you get a +1. If you're hunkered, you get a +2. If you're affected by that condition, so you need to get 10. If you roll an 8, you've got 10, and you add your grit to it anyway. So with this example here, this character's got a grit of 6, so I roll a d10, and let's assume he's not hungered. I need to get 4 or above on the dice to actually make sure that he's alright and not wounded. Then we have morale checks as well. Weapons have a piercing value. The piercing value comes off your target's roll on the grit check, and it's used to suppress them. So going back to this character, he's got a piercing of -3 with his sniper rifle. Sorry, with his shield. Hyper V rifle. I'm really having difficulty seeing today. Right, it's got a range of 18 inches. It's got a pierce -3. So if he was actually rolling against somebody else to hit, they would take 3 off the grit. If that would be the modifier, and then any other modifiers, such as if they were hunkered, they'd take 1 off instead of taking 3 off. And then obviously if you fail your grit roll and you don't have metal, your character's removed as a casualty, or the figure from the units you removed as a casualty. Special actions, some of these cost 1 point, some of them may cost more. So you got flight, hunker down, which is a special action, ram for vehicles, and as with most things, you need to have the trait on your card. So as we saw on this one, we've got traits on the cards which tells you what they can and can't do. It's normally in bold or in capitals. Go on lookout, which is an overwatch action, so you wait for an opportunity fire for your enemy. Charge, which speaks for itself. And then we've got backstab and give them hell. Hit the dirt, hit one for the team, quicken the dead, veteran instincts, and then with different conditions. So we've got disordered, which means that they need to regroup. It only applies to models that are in units. They need to regroup and refocus and get back together again. Hunkered, so as I mentioned earlier, this allows you to get +2 to your grit attribute because you're kissing the ground. Hazard, which means you're affected by an external force such as fire or a weapon that causes you to be get the hazard condition. And these as an effect, you place the token at the side of the counter and it lasts for that turn. Stunned, the model can't do anything. It got a -1 penalty to all its attributes. Then on lookout, as I mentioned, is like a Overwatch style action. Play area. Okay, so tells you how you can play. So you've got open, uneven, or impassable terrain. Normally, the game is played on a 4x4 or a 3x3. When we've always played on a 3x3 because even with 4 posses, 3x3 was plenty big enough. Although you can actually go on a 4x4 or even bigger if you really wanted to. Then we've got our usual things such as line of sight, how terrain works, the size value of the terrain. So if you've got something that's size 1 and you're size 1, you can't see over it, but you can see around it. If you're something that's size 2 and you're size 1, you definitely can't see over it. If you're size 2 and you've got something that's size 1, you can see over it. So different types of terrain. We've got dangerous terrain. So models that come in contact with dangerous terrain immediately gains a hazard condition. Impassable terrain, no monster can go through it. Steep terrain, you've got to make a successful climb check. If you don't, you're going to fall down it. And then uneven terrain, your distance is halved. You can't really get across very well. So your terrain types, so you've got deep river, forest, cliff face, grease slope, hills, hot springs, jungle, dilapidated bridge, mountainside, mesa, ravine, shallow stream and tar pit. And we got a lot of those are dangerous or uneven or impassable. So cliff face is impassable, so is a ravine, because you can't really get through them. And buildings, how buildings work, it's a really good idea to get into a building as soon as possible. Use the elevation of a roof of a building if you can, because they block line of sight for movement purposes, but they don't block line of sight for doors don't block line of sight for you, because you can look through a door and shoot at someone, same with windows. But it's a good idea to actually get in to a building, and buildings all have sizes as well, which dictates how many models you can fit in the building, what size and things like that. Portals are some of the factions can use portals to move from one place to another. It's a little bit like a Stargate type thing, so they enter at one part of the field and they come out of the other part of the battlefield. Most notably, the Warrior Nation tend to use spirit totems, and then the Enlightened and Union use void engines to create them, and also the Hex also use these to actually allow them to move quickly across the battlefield. Weapons, so we have our different values on our weapons. We have melee weapons and ranged weapons. If we look on this card again, as an example, Blackhoof 2020 has Hammer Hands, which is a melee weapon. It's got a range of 0 because it's a close combat weapon, piercing of -1, and a rate of attack of 2. Then it's got and a critical does the disorder condition. And then we have his ranged weapon, which is the Hyper V rifle, which has a range of 18, pierce of -3, and a rate of attack of 1. So you only roll 1 die with this one. With this one, you roll 2 die. And its special on the Hyper V rifle is Shred, which if you Hammer Hands allow you to parry. This one's got Shred, and its special is Lethal, which I'll come on to in a moment. And then we've got qualities for the weapons. So ammo clip, which means that where are we? When declaring a weapon with this quantity, you can choose which ammo you want to use. Some weapons have different ways of firing. Attuned, blast, brutal, close work, disorder, which means it causes disorder. Fatal, successful hits from this weapon ignore the metal rule, so it kills you. And then lethal, successful grit checks against this hit must be re-rolled. So if he got hit by his own weapon, he'd have to re-roll it, and he'd have to re-roll his grit after he's passed. Bearing in mind that you don't re-roll critical successes. And then all the other different things for torrents, which is basically use the tier shape template. It's like a flame effect weapon for various things. adventure scenario and deployment, and that is how we start off with our adventures. And then there's like a couple of bits and pieces of scenarios there. The scenarios aren't very long, gives you your area and your map. So 36 by 36 inches or 48 by 48 inches. So 3 foot by 3 foot or 4 foot by 4 foot. And then that is our look at the rules. So that is basically all you need to know. Obviously it's a little bit more in depth than I've just gone into. But that's in a nutshell how Wild West Exodus plays. It's a you go, I go game, and it's quite simple to get into and can be very unpredictable at times. You've really got to work out your forces and what balances your forces out. Now, there are no forces in this book, and there are also no cards for any of the characters in this book or any of the bosses or anything. They're all available for free on the Wild West Exodus website from Warcradle, along with a PDF version of these rules, which I think is slightly cut down to this version, but there's a PDF version of this rules as well. The main focus on this is you've got the rules in your hand, which makes it a lot easier to flick through rather than looking through an electronic book. And also you've got your cards and you've got your dice and your templates and stuff, and your counters. Okay, so the next 70-80 pages or so are all about the discovery in Antarctica of this rare element that has it's been found by a guy called Sturgeon, and he named it Sturgeonium, and it's also been combined with this element known as element 270, and a limitless power supply called RJ1027 has been developed, which allows the powering of like phenomenally powerful machines. So we've got lighter than aircraft that can fly across the Atlantic in a matter of hours, steamships that can move faster than our cruise liners can move at this day and age. And then we've got our various factions. So we're colour coded. So the blue is for the Union, and then as you see, it goes to change its colour. So the Union of the United States is basically the Union. It's the North from the Civil War, and they are not so much the good guys, because there's no such thing really as the good guys in this game, but they are sworn peacekeepers for the Americas, and they are in a state of reorganization following the Civil War. And so they've got enemies without, enemies within. Tells you all about here about the state of the Union, how America is after the war, and how the death of the president. So Lincoln was plotted to be assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, but in this version of the game, Lincoln doesn't get assassinated, as far as I can remember, because I think Lincoln is still one of the characters in the Secret Service. Yeah, Lincoln's still in the Secret Service. So growth of the Union. Then we've got the Watchers, or the Watchers emoji. The Watchers are a race of aliens that look like this. That's a cerulean. They have been coming to Earth watching the planet's development because it's piqued their interest, and they don't kind of interfere as a rule, but then they discovered that there was another force involved that was kind of reshaping mankind, and that force was the Hex, which they hadn't encountered before, and they decided that they were going to check it out and investigate further. The reason why we've got these advancements in technology is there is a crashed Watcher ship that was discovered in Antarctica. And then this is all the details of them. The Dark Council of the Hex, these are people who are corrupted by this malevolent force that comes from outside of our universe. It's like, it's not evil, but it does corrupt people, and we tend to use, people who use the Hex tend to use constructed cadavers that they piece back together again. Quite like zombies, quite nasty. The background's really, really interesting. Now, I'm not sure how much has changed since second edition, because I've not actually read through this, because I've literally just opened it. The Order of the All Shard is another very, very ancient order that has been around for millennia, fighting against the X. And they basically, they're on the Earth for their own reasons, most likely to destroy the planet. The Order is like quite a small faction, but they're very, very powerful. And they're split into like clades. Same with the Watchers, they're split into different clades, which is like a group of within that faction. Okay, and then we've got the Covenant of the Enlightened, which are a convergence of scientists who all join together for the enlightenment and betterment of mankind through the use of science. And they have a base in Antarctica. And they use crazy, crazy science stuff. Again, there's not very much new artwork here at the moment. All this is old, but there is some nice new artwork at the beginning of the book. Their background seems to be the most, because they're the ones who have got the most detail, really, because the Enlightened are one of the main bad guys, because they're the ones who were responsible for the RJ 1067. Is it 67? 27? My brain's gone. 27. RJ 27. Then we have the lawmen, which are the marshal service. So you've got your sheriffs and your deputies and your US marshals trying to keep peace on the frontier, because the Wild West is still expanding. You know, we've still got our expansion into the West, and we've got Rangers. So people like Wild Bill Hickok, he is one of the lawmen. And then you've got people like Bass Reeves, who's a notoriously good lawman, just as he was in real life. And Bass Reeves was the inspiration for the Lone Ranger. He's one of the most successful lawmen in the history of America. He apparently was responsible for over 1,000 arrests in his career. Outlaws of the American Frontier. So you've got your Jesse James and your Billy the Kid and Pancho Villa and stuff like that. So Johnny Ringo, Billy the Kid, Billy Bonnet, Pancho Villa, Juan Ponce de Leon, Jonathan Jackson's Rebellion, as in Stonewall Jackson, and then Marcus Wayward and his Wayward 8. He's basically the crew of the Firefly, done for Wild West Exodus, because that's basically what they are. And then we have our final factions. We have the Warrior Nation, which is basically the indigenous people of North America. Now, it says the Warrior Nation of North America. There are various warrior nations around the world. So the Maoris in New Zealand and in other parts of the world, such as my brain's gone, Hawaii and the Philippines and things like that. They have their own indigenous warrior nations, but it mainly means warrior nation as in Native Americans like Sioux, Comanche, Apache, Littlefoot, Blackfoot, all that kind of stuff. And they are attuned to Mother Earth and use their ancestors to help them. And that's us more or less coming to the end of the book now. And Then we have our index and more details on where we can get the stuff from for Wild West Exodus. So that's just a quick look through the rule book for Wild West Exodus and the Rules and Gubbins set. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in and playing this. At the moment, Warcradle, in conjunction with the wonderful guys over on Tabletop, are running the Gunslingers League throughout November and into December. I'll leave details below down here somewhere where you can actually find out more about the Gunslingers League. It's still not too late to enter. By the time this video gets up, you should still be able to take part. And there's some good stuff going on there. Hopefully, if possible, I'll bring a review of the Showdown at Retribution, if I can get hold of a copy, and the new plastics, which is great because it's the first time that we've had the Enlightened and the Union in plastic in a starter set. So I've been Mark, and thank you for tuning in and sticking with me through this unboxing and look at the Rules and Gubbins set. I'm going to do a full written review as well, which will go a bit more in depth into what is what in the box. Great product as always. Many thanks to Free and the guys at Warcradle for this review copy. And no matter where you are in the world, please stay safe, look after yourself, and roll those dice high. Thank you and bye.